Greetings, 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 greetings. Desire your king, Clifford Jefferson, our Senator Godfrey, the fifth Canavan Jew, son of folk, the ruler of Jerusalem. I'm the reincarnation of King Edgar the Peaceful, which we know here in the Third Temple English Church of England as Jesus Christ. All right. I'm here today. It is December 15th, 2023, which is in the Berber year 2973. I'm here with another marvelous lecture in regards to uh, pretty much everything that we uh, teach here on the English Third Temple Church of England. But it's going to be mainly focused on, as we said, the public trust. You know, the public trust, and we're going to deal with the public trust in regards to the estate that was promised to, from the biblical perspective, the tribes of Israel, all right, which we know as we call them Hebrews, the Hebrew Israelites. Todd referred to them as the Moors. But, this is come to clear this story up about who the inheritance was left for. You know what I'm saying? In regards to what we call the sextuple. All right. We talked about that in my last lecture, but this is pretty much going to camelback off that lecture to bring it home. And I'm going to use uh, Taj as a stepping stone because once again, Taj does not have a clue about what he's talking about in regards to the understanding of the 12 tribes of Israel who were not Moors. All right. They were not Israelites. They were not Jews. All right. They were Anglo Saxon Berbers, identify as English people as in the world we know of today. All right. So once again, I'm going to qualify it. This might be a long one, y'all. This might be a long one. So grab your popcorn, your peanuts, everything you need. I expect that you leave your comments, as well as your comments, your questions, your concerns. Please uh, 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 leave them in the comments on the website, in the chat line, or as well as you can join me here on the English Third Temple Church. Just send an email to the English Third Temple Church, and I'll plug you in. All right, as well as those who are able, can send your donations, your gifts, your grants, anything that you see fit to assist the Third Temple English Church of England in their quest to restore the English nation or the Anglo-Saxon Berbers back to their illustrious state. You can send it to $ Clifford Jefferson L, or you can send it to the Third Temple English Church of England. Once again, you can send it to $ Clifford Jefferson L, or you can send it to the Third Temple English Church of England. All right. Once again, I appreciate you all. I'm sorry to be so long-winded, but when it comes to this, it's very important that you see the dirty glass from a clean glass of water. All right. So we're really gonna travel back in time, all right, to see what was going on in that time era, which we call time immemorial, and even past the concept of time immemorial dating back to Richard I. We're gonna go back even further, all right. So please, strap yourself in, put your mind caps on, and let's get to work, all right. So without further ado, let's get started. We're gonna go to Todd's video, and Todd's video is called. Let's go to it. As you can see, he got 34.4 subscribers, thousand subscribers. As you can see, he has 17,000 views, streamed 13 days ago. All right, streamed 13 days ago. Grand Sheikh Tajik and Dr. G. The lecture is Yaqub's or Jacob Ladders, the unholy reality. All right, once again, Grand Sheikh Tajik and Dr. G. Yaqub's, the topic is Yaqub's, i.e., Jacob's ladder. All right, this is called Jacob's pillow. All right, this is also called the story of Jacob's pillow. All right, we're gonna discuss all that today. All right. So if Todd, if you're watching this, or Dr. G, if you're watching this, if you want to come on my platform or grant me the permission to be on your platform, we can clear this matter up. You know what I'm saying? Or anybody else who got a problem with the topic today, just reach out to my moderator or my Archbishop Belmont. Leave your comments at the English Church, and we can definitely schedule something so we can bring these issues to an end. You know, because it's very important that the people, most importantly, the people understand what's going on. All right, because they, in my opinion, are the most confused. All right. So without further ado, let's get started. And hated so badly by the pale-skinned people of the quote-unquote white society of the USA. We are aware that the category of astrology, global geography, and the history of the Moorish nation will conflict with 9 out of every 10 persons in the USA, especially those often referred to as quote-unquote Negroes, owing to their quote-unquote Christian education. They have been too deeply instilled with emotional religious doctrines, dogmata, and distorted history as written by prejudiced European American educators during the last 100 years. And this group emotionally relies upon that which they have been taught to believe. Facts and testimony is not the foundation of their faith, except in very rare cases. These people accept without question the beliefs of those among whom they are born and reared, and will disbelieve even the evidences of their own senses, rather than abandon the impractical, emotional beliefs which have grown in them. Today, religious worshippers, quote unquote, have proven to the entire world that they would rather resort to emotional human hatred and fight, suffer, and die over the names of the mythical God and religion than to reasonably agree with simplified and applied truth. While reading these notes, you are advised to endeavor to be guided by common sound reasoning rather than by emotions, which are the result of your traditional beliefs in the quote-unquote doctrines of religion. We are aware of the fact that the illusion, that the illustration of the science of the 12 signs of the zodiac, the history of the Moabite Moorish nation, and the history of the Franciscan Anglo-Saxon nations are confusing to the reader, owing to limited education of the majority of the masses. Nevertheless, the true history is that the Moorish nation rose out of the corruption of the Moabite nation of this hemisphere over 1,371 years ago, calculated from 1951. So the calculation of this history is 1371 years back from 1951. The Franciscan nation rose out of the corruption of the Moorish nation of this hemisphere in 1863, the era of the Union. The only true history during the past 1,300 years is that of the Moorish nation. The Edenic Garden, known as the Garden of Eden. In the year 49,000 ancient Moabites, that's AM, Yaqub produced the red-skinned people, heterogeneous hybrids, Ibrida, so that's I-B-R-I-D-A. I-B-R-I-D-A. That's the heterogeneous hybrids. Heterogeneous. Hybrids. Ibrida. Which animalistic experimentation with the crossbreeding of human and anthropoid conjugae. The subjects of that experiment consisted of 12 Moabite women and the Negro Yavera Araba Oreba chimpanzee, the manifest of which resulted in the name Negro. Repeat. The subjects of that experiment consisted of 12 Moabite women and the Negro Yavera Areba chimpanzee, the manifest of which resulted in the name Negro. The Yaqubian experiment is referenced in the Septuagint and in the Bible and reflected in their books of Genesis. The said Agrida genetics is depicted as a story of the account of the conception and birth of Yaqub and Esau. Septuagint, Genesis 25.23 to 25.25. And the Lord said to Rebekah, there are two nations in thy womb, and two people shall be separated from thy belly, and one people shall excel the other, and the elder shall serve the younger. And the days were fulfilled that she should be delivered, and she had twins in her womb. And the first came out red, hairy, all over like a skin. And she called his name Esau. And after this came forth his brother, and his hand took hold of Esau's heel, and she called his name Yaqub. Bible, Genesis 25.23, 25.25. And the Lord said unto her, two nations are in thy womb, and two manner of peoples shall be separated from thy bowels. And the one people shall be stronger than the other people, and the elder shall serve the younger. And when her days be delivered were fulfilled, behold, there were twins in her womb, and the first came out red all over, like an hairy garment, and they called his name Esau. And after that came his brother out, and his hand took hold of Esau's heel, and his name was called Yaqub. Okay, that's enough. In relationship to the high. Okay, so everybody. Holy Bible, Proverbs 1:22. To know wisdom and instruction for. So as you can see, he said that the Moorish nation, he said most of the people don't understand the story going back to the Franciscan and Essex and Anglo-Saxon history. And he said the Moabite, the Franciscan nation grew out of the corruption of the Moabite nation, and that the Moorish nation, he said the Moorish the Franciscan nation do out of the corruption of the Moorish nation. That's what he said. All right. We all heard it for ourselves. All right. And it all involved the story involving what we call the birthright story concerning Jacob or Esau, or in this case, it would be uh, uh, Yaqub and the so-called, well, he said the heterogeneous. All right. It would be these terms that he's making reference to, but has nothing to do with the actual story in regards to Jacob, whose name was Israel, who became Israel, who became what was it? What was it? Says Jacob and Esau. He wrestled with the angel. We're going to read it now. You know what I'm saying, to get some clarification, because the story is false. All right. First and forehand. First and foremost, the story is false. You know what I'm saying? So because it's an abstract story, there's no concrete proof or evidentiary facts presented by Tashari. There was nothing shown, and he was reading from something, but what was he reading from? Because he was making reference to biblical scriptures coming from the Bible and the Septuagint. All right, all that falls under the what we call the doctrines of the church and their catechism. All right, it all goes back to them. All right, which originate with Constantinople. All right, going back to Constantinople. All right, 330 AD. All right, so we're going to talk about all that today. Before you to understand uh, that, we must first get a perspective of how to go back in time. All right, to comprehend what happened in the time era where we physically can just not go. We physically can't go back into these time and era. So we have to use what we call autobiological memory, or autoscopy. All right, okay, which is a form of being able to travel through time and space, all right, with your mind. With your mind, the mind is not even attached to your body, so it's free to act, to do as it wants to. It actually gives instructions to the physical body, all right. So we're going to get a broad and brief understanding about, a brief understanding about that, because if it was broad, I'd be all day. All right. So a brief understanding on how to be able to interpret the Jacob story. All right. The Jacob story, in which he's talking about Jacob and Esau. All right. So let's go to their source. Anybody ever heard of the stone of Jacob, or the stone of scone? This is where this comes from. All right. And this is where the Jacob and Esau story comes from. Let's see. Everybody pull it up. The stone of Jacob appears in the book of Genesis as the stone used as the pillow by the Israelites patriarch Jacob. In this case would be Yaqub, as Todd said, at the place later called Bethel, which means house of Bel. As Jacob had a vision in his sleep. So he was sleeping. Jacob was sleeping when he had this dream in regards to what we call Jacob's ladder. All right, as you can see here, angels going all up and down the stairs. All right, you see Jacob over here asleep on stones. All right, very important. As Jacob had a vision in his sleep, he then consecrated the stone to God. More recently, the stone has been claimed by the Scottish folklore and British Israelism. Okay? The biblical narrative. According to the account given in Genesis chapter 28, verse 10 through 22, Jacob was fleeing from his elder twin brother, Esau, whom he had tricked out of receiving their father Isaac's blessing of the firstborn, which was concerning the birthright, all right, the inheritance, all right, the sestuque, all right, the trust that was set up for an heir or heirs, all right. But in this case, it was dealing with primogeniture, a male heir. All right. On his flight, Jacob rested at a city called Luz and used a group of stones as a pillow. And Jacob went out of Beersheba and went towards Haran. And he lighted up a certain place and tarried there all night because the sun was set. He took the stones at that place and put them for his pillow and lay down in that place to sleep. So he went to sleep. And he dreamed. So he's sleeping and he's dreaming. And behold, a ladder set up on the earth. All right. And the top of it reached to the heavens. And behold, the angel of God descended and descended on it. Once again, behold, the angels of God ascended and descended on it. And behold, the Lord stood above it and said, I am Lord, God of Abraham, thy father, and the God of Isaac. The land whereupon thou liest, to thee will I give it, and to thy seed. So we're talking about an inheritance of land, a parcel of land. All right. So this vision that he was having was basically a dream about something that was going to physically happen. All right. Physically happen. We must not interpret it in the abstract form. We must understand this in the concrete form, and this is dealing with what we call a land tenure. All right. A parcel of land given from the grantor to the grantee. And thy seed shall be as the dust of the earth, and thou shalt spread abroad the west and to the east, and to the north and to the south. And thee and thy seed shall all thy families of the earth be blessed. All right. So we talking about our lowly old land. All right. All the land, not just a parcel of a land, but land that's east and west, north and south. So that means the whole land. All right. From one person to another person for the benefit of all. All right. You can take that in the abstract or you can take that in the concrete. We want to look at it in the concrete, that abstract. And behold, I am with thee, and I will keep thee in all places whither thou goest, and will bring thee again into this land, for I will not leave thee until I have done that which I have spoken to thee. All right? Spoken to thee, all right? After waking up, Jacob exclaimed, how dreadful is this place? This is none other but the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven. Subsequently, he called that place Bethel, which translates into the house of God. He set up the stone and had slept on a pillow and consecrated it. He also made a vow to God in reference to his eventual return. All right? Other traditions. Some Scottish legends surrounding the stone of scone, traditionally used for coronation of the Scottish kings in the High Middle Ages, have identified the stone with the stone of Jacob. Supposedly, the stone of Jacob was brought to Ireland by the prophet Jeremiah and thence to Scotland. The 17th century writer John Speed described the coronation of James I, calls the stone of Westminster Abbey by the Latin name Saxum Jacobi. All right? These legends also feature prominently in British Israelism, a belief system that holds the British royal family is descended from King David. From 1308 to 1996, the stone of scone rested in King Edward's chair at Westminster on the 23rd of December 2020. It was announced by the Scottish government that the stone is to be relocated to the new renovated Hall Destiny in Perth City Centre, only a few miles from Scone. All right. So we see the abstract comes to concrete. The fictitious story comes to life. All right. All concerning Scottish kings, which became British kings. All right. As well as involves English kings, because it said it became stone rested on King Edward's chair at Westminster. All right. Let's see what King Edward's chair is. Real quick. The coronation chair, also known as St. Edward's chair or King Edward's chair, is an ancient wooden chair on which British monarchs sit when they are invested with regalia and crowned at their coronation. It was commissioned in 1296 by King Edward I to contain the coronation stone of Scotland, known as the Stone of Destiny, which had been captured by the Scots from Edward I in 1296. All right, Scottish independence. The chair was named after Edward the Confessor for centuries until 1997 and was kept in the shrine at Westminster Abbey. Edward the Confessor lived before Edward I. All right? Edward the Confessor was the son of Ethelred the Unready, the son of our Jesus Christ. All right? The son of, yes, King Edward the Peaceful, the son of our Jesus Christ, which I'm the reincarnation of. All right? So it says that it was based off it was referenced to coronation chair Edward the Confessor, but it was known as the Stone of Destiny or the Stone of Scone from British Israelism. All right. So what is British Israelism? All right. Let's look at that real quick. British Israelism or Anglo-Israelism is the British nationalist, pseudo-archaeological, pseudo-historical, or pseudo-religious belief that the people of Great Britain are genetically, racially, and linguistically the direct descendants of the 10 lost tribes of ancient Israel. With roots in the 16th century, British Israelism was inspired by several 19th century English writers such as John Wilson, 1840, Israelish origin. From 1870 onward, numerous independent British Israelites organizations were set up throughout the British Empire as well as in the United States. As of the earliest 21st century, a number of these organizations are still active. In the United States, the idea gave rise to Christian identity movement. All right, there you have it. Everybody see that. Maybe read this next one and then we'll move forward. History. According to Brackney and Fines, the French Huguenot magistrate M. Lee Lawyers, the 10 Lost Tribes, published in 1590, provided one of the early expressions of the belief that the Anglo-Saxons, the Celtics, Scandinavians, Germanics, and associated people are the direct descendants of the Old Testament Israelites. Anglo-Israelism has also been attributed to King James VI and the First of England and Scotland, who believed he was the king of Israel. Adrian Van Schreck, who influenced Henry Spelman and John Sadler, wrote in the early 17th century about his idea of the origins of the Celtic and Saxon people. And in 1649, Sadler published Rights of the Kingdom, which argues for the Israelite genealogy for the British people. All right. So you see how everybody is trying to attach themselves to the genealogy and descent of the people described in the Bible as the 12 tribes or the children of Israel. Genetically, all right, we see the story as described as the 12 tribes written in the so-called Bible as written by what we call King James, which was, as we see in history, was a living person. All right, he was a living person. All right. So he shouldn't have been writing about no abstract story unless it was done on purpose. And by brothers and sisters, it was done on purpose. All right. Yes, it was done on purpose. Follow the trap rabbit hole. So we see that the Stone of Jacob was based off a vision that Jacob had in regards to an estate, right? An estate, not just an estate, but the entire land, the earth, north, south, east, and west. Okay, stretches from north, south, east, and west. And he said in this dream, a ladder reached from heaven to earth, in which his Lord was standing on and made a promise to him. All right, made a promise to Jacob. about the inheritance, all right, which was called a birthright that was stolen by Esau when it belonged to Israel. All right, everybody see that. According to accounts given, Jacob was fleeing from his elder twin brother Esau, whom he had tricked out of receiving their father Isaac's blessing of the firstborn. This concerned primogeniture, a birthright. Jacob rested in a city called Luz and used a group of stone as his pillow. So that means Joseph, Jacob fell asleep, all right? And he had a dream. Now, there's two types of ways you can dream. You can dream while you're sleeping, and you can dream while you're unconsciously, well, I won't say unconsciously, but while you're subconsciously sleeping, while you're in deep sleep, all right? Or you can dream while you're consciously awake. All right, we call it daydreaming. All right, daydreaming. So we're not going to experience this episode like Jacob vision and his subconscious sleep. All right, we're going to vision this through our walking consciousness. All right, by way of daydreaming or mentally dreaming or visioning this time and era. All right, time out of mind, going back into what we call time immemorial. All right, this is because these matters concern time immemorial. All right. So let's get an understanding about what I mean by traveling to this time immemorial without the body traveling through, because it's able to be done in your walker's conscious by just simply just imagining. All right, imagining, creating an image in your mind about these events that's going on in the past to somehow make some sense of them from the abstract and bring them into the concrete. So that's what I'm going to do for you. All right. So let's first look at what we call an out of body experience. All right. There you see your natural person laying down, head resting on the pillow. All right. And he's having an outer body experience. All right. An outer body experience. All right. Which can be which we call astral projection. All right. Projecting yourself outside of your body. It said an out of body experience, or what we call OBE, or sometimes OOB, is a phenomenon in which a person perceives the world from a location outside of their physical body. And OBE is a form of autoscopy, literally seeing self, although this term is more commonly used to refer to the pathological condition of seeing a second self or doppelganger through what they call autoscopy. So, what is autoscopy? I'm prepping you, all right? So we can time travel. Autoscopy is the experience in which an individual perceives the surrounding environment from a different perspective, from a position outside of their own body. Autoscopy comes from the ancient Greek word self-watcher, all right? So moving through space and time, and you're watching yourself, not with your physical body, but with your mental body, all right? Your mental body. Autoscopy has been interest of to humankind from time immemorial. You hear that? From time immemorial. So you only have to go back to the concept of time immemorial in regards to Richard I, because they recognize that concept in law. All right, in the courts of law today, Richard I, and is abundant in the folklore mythology and the spiritual narrative of most ancient and modern societies. Cases of autoscopy are commonly encountered in modern physiatric practices. According to the neurological research, autoscopic experiences are hallucinations. Their root cause is unclear. Autoscopic experience can include non-mirroring real-time images, and the experience may be able to move. All right. We also said this is a product of what we call autobiological memory. All right. Because in order to travel back through time through autoscopy, or what we call OBE, out of body experience, it must be done by way of autobiological memory. So, what is our autobiological memory? Let's define that. Autobiographical memory is a memory system consisting of episodes recollected from an individual's life based on a combination of episodes, personal experiences, specific objects, people, and events experienced at a particular time and place, and semantic general knowledge and facts about the world, memory, and thus type explicit memory. Once again, I repeat, autobiographical memory is a memory system consisting of episodes recollecting from an individual life based on a combination of episodic personal experiences, specific objects, people, and events experienced at particular times and places, general knowledge and facts about the world, and memory, and thus type of explicit memory. So autobiographical memory is based off the past. All right? It's based off remembering the past. And the past is based off what we call digital uploading, which is a form of biological or achieving biological, what we call immortality, because immortality deals with time immemorial. All right, being able to go back into to the past without your physical body, but what we do, but with your memory through what we call our autobiographical memory through autoscopy. Autoscopy. All right. And what is autoscopy? Real quick. Autoscopy is experience in which the individual perceives the surrounding environment from a different perspective from a position outside of their body, i.e., self watcher, seeing yourself. All right. This is the same thing that Jacob was seeing, experiencing in his dream state. All right. Through what they call out of body experience. All right. The same thing we see here. So there's nothing spooky about it. All right. We can visualize it through our dream state, but most of that subconscious dream state is uncontrollable. You have no control over it. But in your conscious state, you have control over your dreams or your dream state, i.e., autoscopy through your out of body experience, which is what we call digital uploading. Digital uploading is to be able is what you do all day long by do your what they call somatic nervous system, by where you're receiving information. All right, this is what you do all day long, whether it's visually, whether it's through your other four senses, sight, taste, smell, whether it's the taste, touch, smell, or sight, or whether it is your mental or faculty. All right, which is your mind, which involves what we're talking about now. You can either use these faculties or the physical faculties. All right. You can use your mental faculties or your physical faculties. Take your pick. All right. Digital uploading or digital immortality. Digital immortality or virtual immortality, all right, is the hypothetical concept of storing or transferring a person's personality in digital substrate, i.e., a computer, robot, cyberspace, or what they call mind uploading. The result might look like an avatar behaving, reacting, and thinking like a person on the basis of that person's digital archive. You hear that? After the death of the individual, this avatar could remain static and continue to learn and self-improve autonomously. All right? This is what you're trying to achieve by mental uploading through memory of past events associated with the origin of where you come from. All right? What is mind uploading? We're gonna move forward. Mind uploading is a speculative process of whole brain emulation in which a brain scan is used to completely emulate the mental state of an individual in a digital computer. This is what you do when you go have x-rays done. All right. You put through what they call those big machines, and when they do a scan of your body, that's digital computer where you can mentally do that yourself. The computer would then run a simulation of the brain information processing, such as that it would respond in essentially the same way the origin brain experience have a sentient conscious mind. So a computer can do the same thing your mind can do. All right? It's the same thing your mind can do. All right. So in lieu of the out of body experience that we're going to have now, all right, I want you to use that same frame of thought in lieu of this lesson I'm going to teach you in regards to the concept of the story concerning the stone of Jacob. All right? The stone of Jacob. All right? But this time you ain't going to fall asleep. I need you to be woke. All right? So you got the medium to be able to travel back in time, going back into the so-called time of these events. All right. All right. And you really ain't got to go back that far because this story in the Middle Ages goes back to what we call the Scottish folklore. All right. The Scottish folklore had to deal with the kings and queens that were ruling what we call Scotland at that time, called the Kingdom of Albia or Alba. All right, which is a corruption of Albion. All right. Once again, the Kingdom of Alba is a corruption of the Kingdom of Albion, which is actually an empire. All right. Once again, this is what we're going to get to, but we have to understand that the Stone of Jacob is a narrative of what we call the Stone of Scone. All right. You see it right here. Some Scottish legends surround the Stone of Stone, tradition used for the coronation of the Scottish kings. All right, which is presently used for the coronation that are going on in the United Kingdom to this present day. All right, so just look at the origin of the Stone of Scone, going back to Queen Scotia, because the word Scotland means the land of the Scots. All right, the word Scotland means land of the Scots. All right. Skoda. Scone of Stone. Baldus Bissett, which was a Scottish attorney, medieval Scottish lawyer. All right, you see it right there. Is credited with being the first to connect the Stone of Scone with Skoda Foundation legends in 1301 work processes, putting forward an argument that the Scotland, not Ireland, was the original Skoda homeland lay. All right, not over in Africa, but over in what we call Scotland. All right. Bissett wanted to legitimize a Scottish as opposed to English. So he said the de facto was Scottish and the jure was English because it didn't say anything about anything in reference to the Bible. When the Bible reference to Jacob and Esau concerning the stone of scones, which was the stone that Jacob laid his head on, in regards to the birthright, which was a promise in lieu of an intel estate, all right, for a male heir or primogeniture, which we see the kings and queens of the British monarchs was governing the land at the particular time. All right. And they were de facto rulers sitting on the crown. The origin of the crown goes back further than we understand it, which I'm giving you that realization here today. All right. So it says a Scottish lawyer is credited with being the first to connect the Stone of Scone with Skoda Foundation legends in 1301. Bissett wanted to legitimize the Scottish as opposed to English ascension to the throne when Alexander III of Scotland died in 1286. At his coronation in 1249, Alexander himself heard his royal genealogy recited generations back to Scotia. All right? Beset attempted to legitimize a Scottish ascension by highlighting Scotia's importance as the transporter of the stone from ancient Egypt during the exodus of Moses to Scotland. And in 1296, the stone was captured by Edward I of England and taken to Westminster Abbey. All right? Taken to Westminster Abbey by Edward I. All right? Because it was in the possessions of Scotland. It says that the scone, which was called Edward the Confessor's chair or the coronation chair, was named in honor of Edward the Confessor, the son of Ethelred the Unready, the son of King Edward the Peaceful, who was actually Jesus Christ. All right? So we have to take the origin of the scone and the so-called claim that the Scottish that they had back to the origin of the Scottish people. All right? The origin of Scottish people, because we know that they said the Scottish people and the origin and the territory that they gained came as a result of the scone, which was carried by Queen Scotia through the times of the Exodus of Moses, when they received the so-called 12 commandments. All right, so this goes into stories involving what we call the kingdom of Jerusalem or Jerusalem itself. All right, and the time span of what we call the Israelites, and that deals with the creation of the Hebrew Israelites, because this is who they are, the Hebrew Israelites. All right, so let's get a timeline to put this situation in. All right, so we know that the timeline for them is known as the 6,000 year timeline, or the year 6,000. Let's revisit that real quick. Since the Scottish people are descendants of the Hebrew Israelites. That's what they say, right? Accordingly, the classical Jewish sources, the Hebrew year 6,000 marks the latest time for the initiation of the Messianic age. The Talmud, the Midrash, and Zohar states that the date by which the Messiah will appear is 6,000 years from the creation story. Did y'all hear me? From the creation story. According to traditions, the Hebrew calendar starts at the time of creation, placing that creation at the time at 3761 BCE, before the Christian era. The current 2023 or 2024 AD, Annus Dominius, in the Hebrew year is 5784. By this calculation, the end of creation One second. Hello? Hello, who am I speaking with? Yeah, hi. Good afternoon, sir. My name is Brian. Okay. According to tradition, the Hebrew calendar starts at the time of creation, placed at 3761 BCE. The current 2023 or 2024 year, which is this year, y'all, the Hebrew year is 5784. By this calculation, the end of the 6,000 year will occur at nightfall on 16 September 2240 on the Gregorian calendar. All right, so let's see that. 3761 and 5784 is the beginning and end of creation. 3761 and 5784. That will bring us here to the year AD. I forgot to pull one up. 2023. 1 second. You must have a record. Your calendar is your record. All right, you must have a calendar, y'all. As you can see, the year 2023. And the Berber year is in our year is 2973. All right. You see the British Regnal year is under Charles III, who is the king of the United Kingdom as we see now. The British Regnal year didn't start till 1707. Prior to 1707, there was only the English Regnal year, which started in 1066 with William the Conqueror. And prior to that, the year was under the Berber calendar. 1059 was there was no English Regnal year. So according to the English Regnal year, it starts with William the Conqueror, which starts from 1066 to 10 what is it to 1066 till 1706. All right, because 1707 starts the British Regnal year, which goes all the way now down to this present day, which deals with Charles III. All right. So as you can see, the Berber calendar year 2973. What is the Hebrew year? 5783, 5784. That means that this is the year of the Messiah. All right. This is the year of the Messiah. All right. In lieu of the 6,000 year time frame. So if the 2023 in the Hebrew year is 5784, and they said the beginning of creation was in 3761, as they said, placed at 3761 BCE, the current 2023, Hebrew year 5784. Starts at time creation, placed at 3761. So that will be the year 1 AD. That will be the year 1 AD. You see the calendar here. The Berber year is 951, right? Which is the time of King Edgar the Peaceful, all right? The Hebrew calendar is what year? 3761, the beginning of creation, all right? The beginning of creation. All right, when God created the heaven and the earth, he created man, blase, blase, blase. So you know that story is a lie, all right? Because all that comes up under what we call the Christian doctrine or the doctrine of the church. It comes up on what we call um, uh, falls under what we call the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. All right, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, which starts with the Council of Nicaea. This goes back to Constantinople. Church of the Holy Sepulchre. As you can see, the founder of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre is Constantine the Great in 335 AD. All right, Constantine the Great in 335 AD. Everybody see that? The Church of the Holy Sepulchre. The Church of the Holy Sepulchre, also known as the Church of the Resurrection, is a 4th century church of the Christian quarter of the old city of Jerusalem. All right. It's considered to be the holiest site for Christians in the world, as it has been the most important pilgrimage site for Christianity since the 4th century. Accordingly to the traditions dating back to the 4th century, it contains 2 sites considered holy holy in Christianity. The site where Jesus was crucified at a place known as Calvary or Golgotha, and the Jesus empty tomb, which is where he was buried and resurrected. All right. Church of the Holy Sepulchre. All right. We know that the Church of the Holy Sepulchre is represented by, or represented by what we call, or protected by, I should say, the kings of Jerusalem. All right. Because it's talking about the Church of the Holy Sepulchre that's in the old city of Jerusalem. But before we go there, let's go here. Ab urda conditia, the founding of a city. Ab urda conditia, the founding of a city. Ab urda conditia, from the founding of the city, and this year since the city founding, abbreviated as AUC or ABC, very important that we understand this, expresses a date in the year since 753 BC. Y'all hear that? Make sure you see that. The traditional founding of Rome, 753 BC, it's the traditional founding of Rome. It is an expression used in antiquity and in classical historians to refer to the given year in ancient Rome, in reference to the traditional year of the foundation of Rome. The year 1 BC would be written as 753. Did y'all hear that? Whereas AD 1 will be written as 754 AD. The foundation of the Roman Empire in 27 BC will be as 727. The current year AD 2023 will be auctioned as 2776, which you see. So once again, I'll repeat. And the reference, let's highlight this. In reference to the traditional year of the foundation of Rome, the year 1 BC will be written in auction in AUC 753, whereas AD 1 will be written as AUC 754. All right, so let's go to 1 AD. As you can see, as they just read, the founding of the city, 754 will be 1 AD, or Annos Dominios. All right, the year of the Lord. All right, and then the Berber year is 951. Everybody got their story, their calendar, their proof of the historical events. Everyone has theirs. The Hebrew calendar, you don't even got one because creation just been started. God just created you. Not even you, the world. All right? We have to understand what's going on. But at this time, it clearly says here, at 1 AD, the birth of Jesus, as assigned by Dionysius Ixicus and his Anodimoni ever, according to at least one scholar. However, most scholars think that Dionysius placed the birth in the previous year, 1 BC. Okay, so that would be 950 AD in the Berber year. All right, we'll see in a second. Furthermore, most modern scholars do not consider Dionysius' calculation authoritative, placing the events several years earlier, see chronological of Jesus Christ. All right, so they say authority placed it even earlier. All right, so 1 BC will be under the founding of the city 753 because AD 1 is 754. As you can see here. All right, which is the Berber year 951 AD. All right, what is 1 BC? And we said 950. 950 AD in the Berber year. All right, 950 in the Berber year. All right, and the Hebrew year, what year is it? 3760 or 3761. That's when God's creating everything. So somebody is lying. Somebody is lying to the people. especially in regards to this so-called estate that God's son, Jesus Christ, was supposed to be claiming for his subjects or heirs or descendants. All right. This is what Todd has yet to prove. This is what any religious society has yet to prove, because the state ain't gonna give it to you. All right. The state is not gonna give you that, what's rightfully yours. They're using it by way of what we call prescription of sovereignty. All right. Prescription of sovereignty. All right. Let's move forward. All right. Let me just show you here. As I said earlier, 1707, which was the Treaty of the Union. All right. 1707 was the Treaty of Union of the Crowns that was done on behalf of the Scottish Parliament. English Parliament had nothing to do with it because the people sitting on the English throne were Scottish kings. All right. So through the Treaty of 1707, they united England, Ireland, and Scotland. But we're gonna get to the origin of Scottish in Ireland in regards to their so-called claim to be English heirs and successors. All right. As you can see here, under the Gregorian year 1707, you see in 1707, you see the British Regnal year. Right? The British Regnal year. Let's go to 1706. Can I get there from here? Yeah, 1706. Right here. Let's see if there's a British Regnal here. Here, a Regnal, a British Regnal year here in 1706. No, you see an English Regnal year, but you still see the same queen sitting on the English throne, right? In 1706, you see an English Regnal year. In 1707, you see a British Regnal year. So they moved from English to British in 1706 to 1707. And when 1707 was the union of the crowns of England, Ireland, Scotland, then at the hands of what we call the Scottish Parliament. All right. Let's see how far the English Regnal year go back. It goes back to what? 1066. Everybody see this? 1065 AD. Do you see English reading out year here? No, you don't see one. So, but the Berber calendar is still here. All right, the Berber calendar is still here, and the year is 2025, 2015. All right, AD. But the Gregorian year at this particular time is 170. It's 1066. All right, 1066, and the Gregorian calendar was not created till 1582. All right, and Pope Gregory the 13th descended down from Pope Gregory the First, who had all the Anglo-Saxons converted to Christianity to adopt the Christian calendars. All right. Prior to that, the only calendar that was in effect was the Berber calendar. All right. Why? Because let's go to 1066. Everybody see this? Now all of a sudden, now our English Regnal year pops up, and who's the ruling? Who's ruling? William the Conqueror, William the Bastard. All right. William the Bastard. This before England, Scotland even came into the picture. All right, this before Scotland even came into the picture. All right, but they somehow came to be uh, uh, kings of England de facto, I might add, sitting on the English throne, controlling English land that was promised to the English heirs and successors. All right, which the Scottish were not, because the Stone of Stones was in reference to the coronation chair that was named after Edward the Confessor. All right, Edward the Confessor, who was the son of Ethelred the Unready, the son of our Jesus Christ, who was ruling in 1 AD. All right, let's see. I can do even better. Let's go through here. English Benedict Time Reform. The English Benedictine reform or monistic reform of the English church in the late 10th century, the time era we're talking about, 10th century, was a religious intellectual movement of the later Anglo-Saxon period. In the mid 10th century, almost monasteries were staffed by secular clergy who were often married. The reformers sought to replace them with celibate contemplative monks, followed by the rule of Saint Benedict. The movement was inspired by the continental monastic reform, and leading figures were Dunstan, Archbishop of Canterbury, Ethelwood, Bishop of Winchester, and Oswald, Archbishop of York. Now, remember, Todd said, and dealing with this Jacob's Ladder, he clearly said that the French, the ancient Moabites, descended down from the Franciscans, and that the Moors were descended from the Franciscans. He clearly said that in that video. Okay. Now we all know who the Franciscans. Franciscans was an order created by who? Pope Francis. All right, and Pope Francis was the one who established the protectors of the Holy Sepulchre, going back to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre created by Constantine. All right, and the protector of the Holy Sepulchre was none other than who? Godfrey. I mean, part self was none other than Godfrey of Bouillon. We're going to talk about that in a second. From the House of Flanders, where William the Conqueror was married to uh, uh, a woman from the House of Flanders. All right, I think her name was Mary from the House of Flanders. I don't want to be mistaken, but we'll get to that in a second. So it says that the rule of Saint Benedict, the movement was inspired the continental monastic reform, and the leading figures were Dunstan, Archbishop of Canterbury, Ethelwood, Bishop of Winchester, Oswald, and Archbishop of York. And the 7th and 8th century England, most monasteries were Benedictine, but in the 9th century, learning monasticism declined severely. Alfred the Great deplored the decline and started to reverse it. The court of Ashton was the first king of whole England, was a cosmopolitan and future reformer, such as Dunstan and Esselwood, and learned from continental exponents of the Benedictine monasticism. The English movement became dominated under King Edgar, 959, right? We know King Edgar was born in 943. Let's just show you that real quick before we keep reading. (943). So 1 AD in the Berbia is 951, where King Edgar is ruling at that particular time. All right, because he was born in 944. King Edgar came to rule in 959. Okay, in 959, he reformed the English Benedictine reform, which we're reading about right now. Let's go back there. Who supported the exposure of secular clergy from the monasteries and cathedral chapters and their replacement by monks. The reformers had close relations with the crown. You hear that? Furthering its interest and depending on its support. All right? Depending on its support. Let's go back here. Ab Urda Conditia, the founding of the city. As you can see here, the years AD 1 corresponds to the founding of the city, 754, based on the epoch of Varros. Thus, you have the corresponding years. 751 BC, all right, which we know is the year 950 AD. Once again, I repeat, 753 BC and the Berber year is actually the year 950 AD, because we know that you don't have an English speak now year, right, till 1066. Prior to that, there is no English speak now year. So that means that the only calendar that can exist at that time would be the Berber calendar. All right. We know the Julius Caesar was created in 47 AD. We know that the Roman calendar was created in the 7th century. All right. We know the Gregorian calendar was created in 1582. So the only qualified, validated calendar that can exist at that particular time, that exists throughout time, was that of what we call the Berber calendar. All right. And we know in the Berber calendar in the year 1 AD, King Edgar is in his childhood. He didn't come to rule until 959. All right. So let's move through history. AD 1 will be 754, approximated birth date of Jesus, approximated by Dionysius Exiguus in AD. All right. He didn't he qualified that way back here. Right between here. 529, auction 1279. Part so. Auction 1279. So auction 1279 will be between here and here. All right? Between here and there. All right, move on down. We're here now. Last year, 2022, current year, 2023. All right? As you can see, it says right here, first year of the Gregorian calendar, 1582. 1582. So the Gregorian calendar didn't come into existence in 1582, and the English calendar didn't come into existence till 1066 with William the Conqueror. Then the only calendar that must have been in existence was that of the Berber calendar, because we know that in 951 there was kings ruling, and King Edgar was a Berber king. All right. We know that all the stories going back to the church doctrine were founded by Augustine of Hippo. All right. Let's revisit it real quick. Going all the way back to St. Peter. First one, St. Peter. All right. St. Peter. AD 1. AD 1. Annus Dominios. You see St. Peter's here on the English Byzantine Reform. We already talked about this. I'm just briefly going through it. There go Peter. There go Mary. There go King Edgar. And there go the image of Christ. All right. Where Jesus, King Edgar, incorporated or to personify that by way of that charter. All right. That charter. Okay, let's get into this. All right, let's move forward. All right, so we know the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Hold on, let me go here right quick. Back here. Lists the popes. We got a whole bunch of them. Let's go to the religious societies in regards to these popes that were governed, because we know that Pope Augustine of Canterbury had all the Anglo-Saxons created Christianity in 597. All right, by Augustine of Canterbury, and he was Augustinian from Augustine, which was from Augustine of Hippo, a Libyan Berber, supposedly be. Here we go. All right, religious orders. We went through this already. We're going through it again because it's going to qualify my story today. The family of the religious organization under the Augustinians originated with who? Order of St. Augustine, which is Augustine of Hippo. All right? Augustine of Hippo. All right? Then you had the Benedictines under St. Benedict of Nursia. The English Reformation in the 9th century was done by King Edgar the Peaceful. All right? As a result of the Benedictine clerics that were there. All right? They were all replaced, all right, by under the English Benedictine reform. All right. And we know that these monasteries all were in charge of the Cestucre. The Cistercians were created in what was it? I think they were in the 12th century. Let's see. You have the Franciscans, and these are ones that Todd's were talking about. All right. The Franciscans were created by who? Francis of Assisi. Let's just make sure we know what we're talking about. All right. Franciscans are a group related mendicants, a Christian religious order within the Catholic Church, founded in 1209 by the Italian Saint Francis of Assisi. All right. Everyone's seen that. Everyone sees this. They also have a Franciscan order in Washington, D.C. All right. In Washington, D.C., as we can see. All right. So this is not the same as the Benedictines. They're not the same. All right. Because the creator of the Franciscan order was also creator of the kingdom of Jerusalem. Let's go here. Kings of Jerusalem. The first king was Godfrey of Bouillon. All right. The king and queen of Judah was supreme ruler of the kingdom of Jerusalem, a crusader state founded in Jerusalem by the Latin Catholic leader of the First Crusade when the city was conquered in 1099. All right. Most of them were men, but they were all have also been 5 queen regions of Jerusalem, either reigning along Sujuro in her own right or as co-rulers of husbands who reign as king of Jerusalem, exclusius, by rights of his wife. All right. Godfrey Bouillon, the first ruler of the kingdom of Jerusalem, refused the title of king, choosing instead the advocatus sancti sepulchri, the advocate and defender of the church of the Holy Sepulchre. All right. This was also founded by who? Francis of Assisi. Let's see. Godfrey Bouillon was the preeminent leader of the first crusades and the first ruler of the kingdom of Jerusalem. All right. from 1099 to 1110, although he avoided the title of king, or advocate for the advocate of the Holy Sepulchre. Let's click that real quick. Give me 1 second, let me find it. I might have to type this in. Give me a second. Set. Give me 1 second, let me just find it. Okay. Order of the Holy Sepulchre. Everybody see that? The equestrian order of the Holy Sepulchre of Jerusalem, also called the Order of the Holy Sepulchre or Knights of the Holy Sepulchre, is a Catholic order of knighthood under the protection of the Holy See, the Pope, and is the sovereign of the order. The order creates canons as well as knights, with the primary mission to support the Christian presence of the Holy Land, and is an internationally recognized order of chivalry. Who is the founder? Godfrey of Bouillon. Founded the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Founded at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. All right. And the head of it is who? Pope Francis of Assisi. Everybody see that? These are facts. These are facts, all right? And these are all involving the kings of Jerusalem. All right? All involving the kings of Jerusalem. And we know the king of Jerusalem was Godfrey of Bouillon. Now, Godfrey of Bouillon is very important because of his descendancy. All right? We already connect Godfrey of Bouillon, the first king of Jerusalem. Before we deal with the first king of Jerusalem, Jerusalem has a long history prior to that king of Jerusalem, right? We all know that. Just look at that. right here. Everybody see this. Concerning Jerusalem, according to the Hebrew Bible, King David conquered the city from the Jebusites and established it as the capital of the United Kingdom of Israel. You hear that? And his son, King Solomon, commissioned the building of the first temple. So why is Godfrey of Bouillon considered in concrete story the first king according to the historical records going back to the Crusades? Why is that? All right. Modern scholars argue that Jews branched out of the Canaanite people and culture through the development of distinct monolatrous, and later monotheistic religions centered on Yahweh for itself. I don't know how we beat that. These foundations events straddling the dawn of the first millennium assume central symbolic importance for the Jewish people. The subsequent of holy cities was probably attached to Jerusalem in post-Exilic times. The holiness of Jerusalem in Christianity conserved in the Greek translation in the Hebrew Bible, which Christians adopted as their Old Testament, were reinforced by the New Testament account of Jesus' crucifixion and resurrection there. So all this involves the 6,000-year time frame. All right, it all involves creation and return of the Messiah. All right, which, as they say, will be the year 2023 because it's the end year of the creation story. I mean, the end of the events leading to those dealing with the prophecy of the millennium with the Messiah, the 1,000-year rest period. All right, which starts in 5784, ended with the 6,000 year, which will occur at nightfall. All right, we already know what the Messiah age is, right? Let's just view that since we're on the topic. In Abrahamic religion, the Messiah age is the future period. So he ain't talking about the past, they ain't talking about the present, it's talking about the future, all right? Period of time on earth with which the Messiah will reign and bring universal peace and brotherhood without any evil. Many believe that there will be such an age. Some refer to it as the consummate kingdom of God or the world to come. Jews believe that such a figure is yet to come, while Christians and Muslims believe that this figure will be Jesus. All right. So this is all involves this year. All right. 2023. All right. Somebody's here is supposed to be ushering this prophecy in regards to the return of the estate that was promised to go all the way back to Jacob, Abraham's children. All right. So we must understand that because that story is connected with who? The British monarchs. All right. It's connected with the British monarchs. So this is what we're going to reveal through autobiological memory, through autoscopy, through digital uploading to get us back into the understanding of who we were by seeing ourselves through what we call self-watching. All right. Let's get busy. All right. All right, where I want to go now? Let's go back here. Sesquipé. The origin and purpose of the statue, not the historical events is what I'm concerned about. or the invention, I should say. Medieval invention of the sestuque goes back to the time of the Crusades, so as we already know, it goes back to 1099, dealing with the kings of the Jerusalem. All right, and it said that the power of attorneys in regards to the estates belonging to the crown, because we know that the ones responsible for the estates were the monastery, the mendicant orders, such as the Franciscans, as Tosh talked about, the Cistercians, and the Benedictines. All right, which took vows of poverty yet retained the use of the donated property, called what they call the sestuque. You know, the sestuque is known as what they call the fiefment. All right. And the fiefment goes back to the fiddle tingers. That goes back to the time of the time of the what we call the Norman conquest. All right. Goes back to the time of what we call the Norman conquest. Sestuque, the person who used the benefit of the fiefment was made. A fiefment is let's start right here. A written deed right here, y'all. I know we're going over this information. Why? Because the first time you might not have got it. So hopefully the second or third time I go through it, it becomes sound. All right. A written deed, traditionally a document impressed with the signature and seal of the transferor of the signature of the witnesses, confirming symbolic delivery was customary, all right, and became mandatory after 1677. Gradually, the delivery of this deed to the new owner replaced the symbolic act of delivering an object representing the land, such as a piece of the soil. The fee, i.e., the transferee, was henceforth said to hold his property of or from the fifer. In return for the specified service, money payment were not used until much later. What services was given depended on the exact form of feudal land tenure involved. Thus, for every parcel of land during the feudal era, there existed a historical unbroken chain of fiefmen. In this form of overlords, ultimately springing from the fiefment made by William the Conqueror himself in 1066 as the highest overlord of all. You hear that? This pattern of landholding was the natural product of William the Conqueror's claiming allodial title to and all the lands of England following the Norman conquest of 1066. All right, and parceling it out as large fees in the form of feudal baronies to his followers, who then in turn subdivided the lands, comprising their baronies into manors to be held from them by their own followers and knights. Did you hear that? Okay, so let's go travel back in history since we're talking about William the Conqueror and since we're talking about land tenures, and this land tenure happened to go back into the land tenure that was promised to Jacob. All right, Jacob when he had his dream. All right, talking about land given to him by God. All right, or the angels promised him. All right, so we're going to review that story because it all has to do with the stories that were preserved by the Scottish kings. All right, they have preserved this story going back to the stone to scone, or what they call Jacob's ladder, and they made reference to it as we read that it was in honor of Edward the Confessor. So Edward the Confessor definitely have something to do with that stone to scone, which was confiscated from the kings of Scotland by Edward the First in 1296, as it said. All right, so it's very important to find out the origin of the Scottish kings and queens before we give them the authority to say that they were the descendants of the of God in regards to the 12 tribes. All right, we got to prove this, so let's prove it. Okay. Everybody pull up Asherton. It's about to get good, y'all. I'm sorry it's long, but it's I gotta do it this way. All right. Back to Athelstone. The word Athelstone means noble stone, right? The word Athelstone means noble stone. We know noble means of noble family. How do we know that? First of all, let's check it out. Because Jacob dream was about uh uh a birthright, right? It's about a birthright, all right? And as Todd says, the birthright was stolen by Esau, the older. And he said it involved the Franciscan and Anglo-Saxon story. We know Franciscans goes back to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, which involves the fake story of Jesus Christ, because we know that it involves those kings of England going back to Eustace II, which we talk about in a second, all right, which were claimed to be the noble family, but they were not, all right. They married into the noble family, and the noble family was the kings of the Anglo-Saxons, all right. And the Anglo-Saxons were a result of the ties of families with the England and French connections, all right. I'm going to tie all that in today, all right. So the word Atheling, because Athelstan, the root word Athel, Atheling, also spelled Athling or Athling or Etheling, was an Old English term, all going back to ether. All right, ether was an Old English term used in Anglo-Saxon England to designate princes of royal dynasties who were eligible for kinship. The term in Old English and Old Saxon compound of Athley or Ethel meaning noble family, and ing meaning belonging to. It was usually rendered in the Latin as filius regis, king's son, or Anglo-Latin neologism clito. All right? Everybody see that. Meaning used in Anglo-Saxon England. During the early years of the Anglo-Saxon rules in England, the word Aston was probably used to denote any person of noble birth. All right, of noble birth. All right. So we're gonna look at it from the English perspective. We're gonna look at it from the Scottish perspective. All right, because Scottish or the Scottish descendants stole the noble birth of the English heirs and successors who were actually burghers. All right, let's prove it. We're gonna start with Asserton, which were not European. What do you say? Todd said heterogeneous. All right, Anglo Saxons or English. They were not those pale white people that you say came out the caves as troglodytes. Asserton. As you can see, there's a depiction of Asserton, right? Was a saint. Asserton, a noble stone, all right, was the king of Anglo-Saxons from 924 and 927 and king of English from 927 to his death in 939. He was the son of King Edward the Elder. His wife was Ecgwin. Modern historians regard him as the first king of England and one of the greatest Anglo-Saxon kings. He never married and had no children. He was succeeded by his half-brother, Edmund I. Edmund I was the father of King Edgar the Peaceful, which we know as Jesus Christ. All right. When Edward died in July 924, Atherton was accepted by the Mercians as king. His brother Ethelbert may have been recognized as king in Wessex, but died within 3 weeks of their father's death. Atherton encountered resistance in Wessex for several months and was not crowned until September 925. In 927, he conquered the last remaining Viking kingdoms, York making him the first Anglo ruler of the whole of England. In 934, he invaded Scotland and forced Constantine II to submit to him. Atherton's rule was resented by the Scots and Vikings. You hear that? Scots and Vikings. And in 937, they invaded England. Did you hear that? Did you hear that? In 937, they invaded England. All right, that goes into what we call the Oil Alliance. Since I read that, let me pull that up. Where is it at? Come on now. see. I'm a teacher. All right. All the lions. All the lions was an alliance between the Kingdom of Scotland and France against England, made in 1295. The Scots were old, meaning old, has become a partly affectionate term for the long-lasting association between the two countries. Although the alliance was never formally revoked, it is considered by some to have ended with the signing of the Treaty of Edinburgh in 1560. All right. The alliance began with the treaty signed by John Balliol and Philip IV of France in 1295 against Edward IV of England. All right. Now, Edward I is of the Angevin crown. I mean, of the house of the founder of the House of Yorks. All right, because all the children from him, Edward the First, pardon himself, Edward the First of the Plantagenet crown, Edward the Second, Edward the Third. Then you get to the Yorks and Lancaster houses. All right, but this issue dealing with Atherton goes back in the 9th century. Before that, all right, and Atherton is having a conflict with the Scottish kings. All right, it says here he conquered last remaining Viking kingdoms, York making him the first England ruler in the whole of England. In 934, he invaded Scotland and forced Constantine to submit to him. Atherton's rule was resented by the Scots and Vikings, and the Scots were the Franks. All right. All right. In 937, they invaded England. Atherton defeated Esau defeated them at the Battle of Brunanburh, a victory that gave him great prestige both in the British Isles and on the continent. After his death in 937, the Vikings seized back control of York and was not finally reconquered until 954. All right. Who was Constantine? So this is before King James done. All right. This is way before King James done. All right. Constantine the second, born of later than 875, died in 952, was the early king of Scotland, known then by Gaelic name Alba. The kingdom of Alba's name, which first appears in Constantine's lifetime, was situated in modern-day Northern Ireland, Scotland. All right? This is their corruption of Albion. All right? This is their direct corruption of the word Albion. All right? Let's prove it. Let me just go to this battle of Brunanburh. I missed that. The battle of Brunanburh was fought in 937 between Atherton, the king of England, and an alliance of Olaf Guthferthson, king of Dublin, Constantine II, king of Scotland, and Owain, king of Strathclyde. All right? The battle is sometimes called, cited as the point of origin for the English national identity. Historians such as Michael Livingston argue that the men who fought and died on the field forged a political map of the future that remains, arguably making the Battle of Brunanburh one of the most significant battles in the long history, not just in England, but the whole British Isles. Following the unchallenged invasion of Scotland by Atherton in 934, possibly launched by Constantine had violated a peace treaty, it became apparent that Atherton could be defeated only by alliances of his enemies. Olaf led Constantine and Owens in the alliance In August 937, Olaf and his army sailed from Dublin to join forces with Constantine and Owens, but they were routed in the battle against Asserton. All right, so this goes back to, as we said, William the Conqueror. All right, because William the Conqueror was a Viking as well. All right, he was a Viking as well. So let's go back to this timetable to clear this up. Let's go back to the kings of Jerusalem. Let's clear it up for y'all. Okay. The king or queen of England, not only that, it says Godfrey was the first ruler of the kingdom of Jerusalem, refusing the title of king, choosing instead the title Advocate Sancti Sepulchre, that is the advocate for the defender of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. All right. The next ruler in line was Baldwin the First and Baldwin the Second. All right. Once again, Godfrey of Bouillon, if I got him here, let me just light him up. But from the House of Flanders. Godfrey of Bouillon was the preeminent leader of the First Crusade and the first ruler of the Kingdom of Jerusalem. All right, let's just go look at his stats. He's from the House of Flanders, and his father was Eustace II of Boulogne. His mother was Ida Lorraine, and his religion was Roman Catholicism. Everybody see that? All right, we talk about Jerusalem in the kingdom of Jerusalem and the kings of Jerusalem. All right, with the first king being Godfrey of Bouillon from the House of Flanders. The House of Flanders descended from, let's just pull this up for the sake of time, not knowing. The House of Flanders was a medieval ruling family of Frankish origin that was founded by Baldwin Iron Arms, son-in-law of Charles the Bald. All right. The House of Flanders was the first dynasty to transform to country functions of the Carolingian Empire into a hereditary fiefdom and county of Flanders, falling under the West Francia created by the Treaty of Verdun in 843. So Charles the Bald is descendant of the Carolingian Empire, and the Carolingian Empire descended down from the Merovingian Empire, which was descended down from Clovis I. And the Carolingians or Merovingians never claimed to be descendants of gods like the Anglo-Saxons. All right? We've already been through that. The Merovingians never claimed to be descendants of God like the Anglo-Saxons. And when we say descendant, we're talking about genetics. All right? All right? We're talking about a birthright. We know that the Scottish claim to be descendants from the 12 tribes of Israel, going back to Jacob, and far as to the scone, that what they call the stone of scone. All right, the stone of scone. All right, so we're gonna trace all that back, brothers and sisters, mothers and fathers, aunts and uncles. We're gonna trace all that back. Let's do that. All right, so Eustace was from the Godfrey of Bouillon was from the House of Flanders. His father was Eustace II. So who was Eustace II? Very important. Eustace II, also known as Eustace Osgrinus, Eustace with long mustaches, was Count of Boulogne from 1049 to 1087. He fought on the Norman side of the Battle of Hastings, and afterward received large grants of land, forming an honor in England. He is one of the few proven companions of William the Conqueror. All right? The Battle of Hastings took place with when Edward the Confessor died. We know that the stone of Scone was named in honor of Edward the Confessor. It was just under Scottish control, and which was returned as a result of Edward the First conquering Scotland through Scottish independence in 1295. All right, but the story of that stone of Scone goes back to the history in regards to the true origin, which extends back to William Edward the parts of Edward the Confessor's descendants. All right, let's prove it. Origin and career. Eustace joined his father-in-law rebellion against Emperor Henry III. The next year, Eustace was communicated by Pope Leo IX for marrying with the prohibited degree of kinship. Eustace and Ida were both descendants from Louis II of France, and just within the prohibited seventh degree. However, since not all their ancestors are known, there might have existed a closer relationship. The Pope's action was possibly at the behest of Henry III. The rebellion fell, and in 1049, Eustace and Godfrey submitted to Henry III. Eustace visited England in 1051 and received with honors at the court of Edward the Confessor and his former brother-in-law. So yes, Eustace II was the brother-in-law of Edward the Confessor. All right, and this is going to be through what we call Margaret of Scotland. All right, it's going to be through Margaret of Scotland. Edward attempted to invest Eustace, a Castellan, of a castle in Dover, which was met with resistance by the locals, resulting in nearly 40 deaths. The brawl in which Eustace and his servants became involved with the citizens of Dover led to a serious quarrel between the king and Godwin. Uh, King and Godwin. The latter, the latter to whose parts of the latter to whose jurisdiction the men of Dover were subject refused to punish them. His lack of respect to those in authority became the excuse for his being outlawed together with his family. They left England but returned the next year in 1052 with large armies aided by the Flemish. Battle Hastings. These events evidently caused a shift in Eustace's political allegiance, for he then became an important participant in the Norman conquest of England in 1066. He fought at Hastings, although sources vary regarding the details of his conduct during the battle. The contemporary chronicles William Pontifex wrote concerning him. You can read that on your own time. But as we can see, Eustace II, the father of Godfrey of Bouillon, was a companion of William the Conqueror who invaded England. All right? We can see that. All right, where I'm going to go now. Norman Conquest. Give me a second. Okay. Okay, the Norman Conquest was an 11th century invasion and occupation of England by an army made up of thousands of Briton Normans. We already know that. All right, it says William the Conqueror. William claim to the English throne derived from his familiar relationship with the childish Anglo-Saxon King Edward the Confessor, who may have encouraged William's hope for the throne. Edward died in January 1066 and was succeeded by his brother-in-law Harold Godwinson. All right, so that brings you to the Battle of Stamford Bridge, which actually resulted in the Battle of what they call uh, um, uh, what was that called in the Treaty of Westminster? Wallingford. All right, we'll discuss in a second. All right. So as we can see here, William the Conqueror uh, had hosted or assumed the throne of England as a result of the deaths of Edward the Confessor and the role in the war at the Battle of Stamford Bridge. All right. All right. We see that. And we know that Esau II was William's companion when he invaded England, as we can see. And we know that William Esau II's son, Harold, Godfrey of Bouillon, was considered the king of England and protector of the Holy Sepulchre, going back to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, going all the way back to Constantinople as established by uh, um, all those popes that came out of that creation. All right. All those popes that we have from back then going on today was created as a result of Constantinople and the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. All right, which was all filtered through what we call the Franciscan Church. All right, and not the Benedictine Church, through what we see through the English Reformation as established by King Edward the Confessor, because Edward the Confessor is a product or a descendant or an heir of who we say Edward the Confessor. All right. He was the heir of Edward the Confessor. How we know that? We go back here. Constantine. Is that Where is he at? Constantine. Oh, here we go. Okay. So as we see, Constantine II was king of Scotland, known as the Kingdom of Alba, a name which first appears in Constantine's lifetime, which was situated in modern day northern Scotland. All right. And we know that he was born with who? Asherton. All right. And Asherton was the son of who? Alfred the Great. Right here. Atherton encountered resistance in the Wessex for several months and was not crowned until September 1925. 920 parts of 925. And in 927, he conquered the last remaining Viking kingdom, York, making him the first Anglo ruler of the whole of England. In 934, he forced Constantine II to submit to him, and Asherton rule was resented by Scots and the Vikings. And in 937, they invaded England. All right, there you have it right there. And just for the record, as you can see, for the sake of characteristics or identity as far as color, you can see he was dark skinned. All right, you see he was dark skinned. All right, so let's get that straight. Let's move forward. Constantine from the Kingdom of Alba. Kingdom of Alba was the kingdom of Scotland between the death of Donald II in 900 and Alexander III. All right. We already just got talking about Alexander one with Constantine, king of Alba. Here we have Duncan II and Alexander III in 1286. And latter deaths led directly to an invasion of Scotland by Edward I of England. And in 1296 is the first war of Scottish independence. All right. As we can see right there. Alba included Dalridia, but not large parts of the present-day Scottish lowlands, which were then divided between Strathclyde and Northumbria. As far north and first of Forth, Fortree and Pictish King in north was added to Alba in the 10th century. Let's move right here. The name Alba is one of the conveniences as throughout this period, both the ruling and the lower classes of the kingdom was predominantly Pictish, Gaels, later Pictish, Gaels, and Scottish Norman. This differs markedly from the period of the House of Stuart beginning in 1371, in which the ruling classes of the kingdom mostly spoke Middle English, which later evolved into came to be called Lowland Scotland. There is no precise Gaelic equivalent for the English term Kingdom of Alba, as the Gaelic term, I ain't pronounced that, means Kingdom of Scotland. English-speaking scholars adapt the Gaelic name for Scotland to apply to a particular political period in Scottish history during the High Middle Ages. Everybody see that, all right? So let's go here. The etymology of the word Scotland. Scotland is a country that occupies the northern third of the island of Great Britain and forms part of what they call the United Kingdom. The name Scotland is derived from the Latin Scoti, the term applied to Gaels. The origin of the word Scotia dates back to the 4th century and was first used by Roman writers to describe the Northern Gaelic group of raiders that left present-day Ireland and landed in West Coast Scotland. Okay, right here. The Latin word Scotia, land of Scoti, although initially used to refer to Ireland by the 11th century, as the latest the name Scotland was being used by English writers to refer to the Gaelic-speaking kingdom of Alba, north of the River Forth. Some of the earliest surviving documents to mention the word Scotland include versions of the Anglo-Saxon Chronicles from Abington, Worcester, and Law, writings during the 11th century which state that prior to the Battle of Stamford Bridge in 1066, Earl Tosage had sought refuge in Scotland under the protection of Malcolm III, King of Scots. Now, mind you, Malcolm III of Scotland was married to Matilda of Wessex, Margaret of Wessex, which became Matilda of Scotland. All right? Remember that. We're going to go back to that. Once again, Malcolm III with Scotland married into the kings of Wessex through Margaret of Wessex, which became Margaret of Scotland. All right? Which was the mother of Empress Matilda, who married Godfrey the Fifth Calaman Jew. All right? I'm telling you, it's connected. Let's get to it. Once again. So it says here, the medieval mythological of Skota and late medieval legends, Skota was Gordel glass, voyaged from Egypt as depicted in a 5th century manuscript by Scotian Walter Bauer. So let's type this in. The narrative in Lebor Gabella Ering is a legendary account of the origin of Gales as descendants of the Scythians. Prince Phineas Forrest said, one of the 72 chieftains who built the Tower of Babel. In the tale, Gordel Glass is the son of Nel, son of Phineas, and Skoda, daughter of a pharaoh of Egypt. Gordel Glass is credited with creating the Goldilic language from originally 72 languages that arose at the time of the confusion of the tongues. The descendants, the Godels or Gales, undergo a series of trials and tribulations resembling those of the Israelites in the Old Testament. Remember who wrote the Bible? They flourished in Egypt at the time of Moses and lived during Exodus. They wandered the world for 440 years before eventually settling in the Iberian Peninsula. There, Godel descendants Brigon found a city called Brigantia and built a tower from the top, which his son Ith glimpsed Ireland. Brigantia likely refers to Corona and Galicia, then known as Britannium, while Brigon's tower is likely based on the Tower of Hercules, which was built by Corona by the Romans. All right, so that's where that story comes from. Let's see. Historia Britain. The earliest surviving version of the story is found in the 9th century Historia Britannum. It is described an unnamed Scythian nobleman driven from his kingdom and living with a great household in Egypt at the time of the crossing of the Red Sea. He did not pursue the fleeing Israelites and the Egyptians, fearful of his power now that so many of their troops had been killed. Banished him. He traveled with his household across North Africa and then sailed to Iberia, then settled and lived there for around 2,000 years, multiplying to great nations before traveling to Ireland and then Dalmatia. All right? There you see it. Let's go here. So that's going back to here, the stone of scone, before I move forward my lesson. The stone of Jacob, once again, appears in the book of Genesis as the stone used as a pillar by the Israelites, patriarch Jacob, a place called Bethel, as Jacob had a vision in his sleep and he consecrated the stone to God. More recently, the stone has been claimed by the Scottish folklore, i.e., British Israelism. So the British are claimed to be the descendants of the Israelites. All right. This legend also features prominently British Israelism uh, uh, belief system that holds that British royal family is descended from King David from 1308 to 1996. The stone of scone rested in the King Edward's chair at Westminster. We know King Edward's chair is associated with Edward the Confessor. All right. Edward the Confessor was the son of Ethelred the Unready, the son of Jesus Christ. All right. So all that dealing with Edward the the what we said the William the Conqueror, and the alliances of the Frankish, because William the Conqueror was a Frankish, and the alliances that they had in regards to them invading England and going back to what we call time immemorial. That's very important to understand that concept, time immemorial. All right, let's move forward. All this goes back to, as we said, dealing with this vision, the estate or the inheritance that was left for Jacob and his descendants. And Jacob had his name changed to Israel or vice versa, whichever it was. I'm going to read this verse right here. Right here, verse 14. And thy seed should be as the dust of the earth, and thou should spread abroad the west and the south, and to the north, and to the south, north and to the south, and to thee and thy seed shall the families of thy earth be blessed. And behold, I am with thee, and I will keep thee in the place where thou goest, and will bring thee again unto this land. For I will not leave thee until I have done that which I have spoken to thee of. One verse above. And behold, the Lord stood above it and said, I am the Lord thy God, Abraham, thy father, and thy God of Isaac. The land whereupon thy liest, to thee will I give it, and to thy seed. So there's an inheritance there, we see. Excuse me, I'm scratching. All right, there's an inheritance there. So let's go into this inheritance, because this inheritance involves what we call, or something to what we call, the public trust doctrine. All right, the public trust doctrine. If I pull that up right quick. All right, we got to look at the public trust doctrine from the past to qualify the present, which was reserved for the future. All right, we have to look at this. The public trust doctrine is the principle that the sovereign holds in trust for the public use some resources, such as sure line between the high and low tide lines, regardless of private property ownership. You hear that? Regardless of private property ownership. The origins only come, you can find the origin of this doctrine in three places. Origin going back to Constantine, dealing with the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, or you can find it in England, or you can find it in the United States. All right, three places. Justinian. When you're talking about Justinian, you're going back into Constantinople. The ancient laws of the Byzantine Emperor Justinian held that the sea, the shores of the sea, the air, the running water were common to everyone. All right. The seashore, later defined as waters affected by the ebb and flow of the tides, could not be appropriated for private use. It was open to all. So he's talking about water. You hear that? Talking about water. The ancient law of Byzantine Emperor of Justinian held that the sea, that the shores of the sea, the air, and the running water were common to everyone. The seashore, later defined as waters affected by the ebb and flow, when the water goes in and out, could not be appropriated by private use and was open to all. All right. So this deals with the land dealing govern the waters. All right. And we know Justinian goes back to what we said, Constantine, Constantinople. Where is it at? All right. And we know Constantinople was governed the Roman Empire, the Byzantine Empire, the Ottoman Empire. Oh, where we at? Roman Empire, Byzantine Empire, the Latin Empire, and the Ottoman Empire. We can see that. That's Constantinople. All right. So, and based off the outlook on Constantinople, it didn't involve land because Justinian was a ruler in Constantinople. All right? He was a ruler in Constantinople. All right? The Byzantine Empire is part of Constantinople. All right? The next one is England. The presidency became the law in England as well. Centuries later, the Magna Carta further strengthened public rights at the instances of English nobles. Fishing wares which obstruct free navigation were to be removed from the rivers. All fishing wares are in future to be entirely removed from the Thames and Midway and throughout the whole land of England except on the seacoast. All right, when we're dealing with the rights of land and water, because England at that time was governed under what we call English land law. All right, and then we have the United States. In a second. But then we have the United States. The rights were further strengthened by later laws in England, and so secret became part of the common law of the United States. Supreme Court first accepted the public trust doctrine in Martin versus Wardell Leslie in 1842, confirming it in several decades later in Illinois Century Railroad versus Illinois. All right, so these are modern case laws that reflect the public trust doctrine from the present day common law of England, which was the common law of the United States. All right, we see that in Smith, Alabama, and we see that in what was that case we read the other day? What case was that? Chisholm versus Georgia. Chisholm versus Georgia. All right. So the public trust doctrine we're talking about. All right. As we heard it from Constantinople's standpoint. All right. The medieval standpoint, going back to the English nobles, because we know that the Scottish kings make their connection going back to the 12 tribes of Israel. All right. The English makes no such claim because that story was fabricated by what we call the Roman Catholic Church, going all the way back to the conversion of the Anglo-Saxon in 597. All right, which succeeded Constantinople. All right, under those same list of Pope. All right, Pope Gregory the First was there. He was there as well. All right, so let's move forward. Public trust doctrine. We know that falls under what we call prescription. All right, prescription. Prescription is the international law and sovereignty transfer of a territory by the open encroachment by the new sovereign upon the territory for a prolonged period of time, acting as a sovereign without protest or other contest by the original sovereign. It is analogous to the common law doctrine easement by prescription by private real estate. Did you hear that? All right. Private real estate. Easement by prescription. Right of use of territory that you do not own. Okay? That you do not own. This falls under what we call the Prescription Act. The Prescription Act of 1832 was an act of the Parliament of the United Kingdom, being that they were de facto, concerning English land law, particularly the method for acquiring the right to use, which was passed August 1st, 1832. The common law prescription assumed continuous prescription rights from 1189 when the legal regime officially began. All time before which have been designated as time immemorial. You know what that means, right? Let's find out. Again, we already know it makes reference to the Native American lands, but the origin goes back to the English common law as here in America, as established here in England. And English law, time immemorial ends and later legal memory begins at 1189 and end of the reign of King Henry II, the son of Godfrey V, Count of Anjou, son of Folk, ruler of Jerusalem, who preceded Baldwin II, Baldwin I, and Godfrey of Bouillon. All right. He took it back from those de facto rulers because of their perception of the English crown. All right. He took it from them. In English law, time immemorial ends and legal memory begins at 1189 because all that was done prior to that was irrelevant. All right. Because common law is founded to have non-historical immemorial event and distinct from the laws created by the monarchy or the legislative body on a fixed date, i.e., the Prescription Act. All right. Time immemorial. Let's see. Henry II. Richard I. This is the creator of the concept of time immemorial. All right. King of England, son of Henry II, son of Godfrey V, Count of Anjou, son of Folk. You know what I'm saying? So this is the timeline that you got to have or you have to remember in regards to this estate or inheritance that was left from your father. All right? In lieu of some type of heritage going back to time of memorial. Our time of memorial don't go back to Moses and the Jews. The Jews were expelled from England in 1295. Those Jews were those Scottish kings and queens. All right? Now they came over here practicing this stuff as a result of them overthrowing it through the English Civil War. All right? Which was the war between the three kingdoms and the war between the England, Ireland, and Scotland, which resulted as a result of the wars of the Yorks and the Lancasters. All right? We see that through the Treaty of Alliance of 1493. I mean, let me see. Let's go to that. Let's go to that real quick. I gotta hold this thought for a minute. I gotta make a quick phone call. Everybody take a bathroom break. I'll be right back. So time immemorial, as started established by Richard I, and it goes into the right of prescription, the proper way for the right of prescription. You know, prescription is right of use. All right. Prescription is the right of use, an easement. All right. All right. Some people are using the property of the church unlawfully because we know under the Sestuque, the property was belonged to the church. And the church, the monasteries who were belonging to the church consisted of several monasteries. All right. Some of the monasteries were de facto because they were Roman Catholic. This is what Henry VIII was trying to protect. So he put everything in the Sestuque. All right. Because we know under statute mortem, everything remains a dead pledge. All right, until that proper king steps into that position as corporation sole, as we've seen reserved by the English Benedictine Reform under King Edward I. All right, for the English church and not the Church of England, which Henry VIII was a part of. All right, let's get to it. So the Prescription Act of 1832, all right, in regards to proper way of acquiring an easement, uh, was going back to time immemorial. You know, time immemorial starts with the House of Plantagenet, all right, which is the first. And it says, because he says here, where's it at? Right here. The right of prescription or easement not to extend to Scotland or Ireland. You hear that? The right of easement in lieu of prescription is not to extend to Scotland and Ireland. So this is why everything was given back. All right. The de facto monarchs sitting on the English throne in their nature and in their incumbency were de facto rulers. They had no right to the property belonging to the English throne, i.e., the English church, as we see in the English Benedictine Reform. All right. We see in the English Benedictine Reform, right, which was connected to the crown. Right here. The reformer has close relation with the crown, further their interest depending on its support. All right. And the English reform was a result of the reform of the English Benedictine reform, which were the ones responsible for what? The Sestuque. We'll just go back there before we move forward. Right here. There you go. Orders such as the Franciscans, Cistercians, and Benedictines, and other mendicant orders took vows of poverty, yet retained the use of the donated property. All right? All right? Why? Because it was preserved beside obvious limitations placed on the Sestuque by the statutes of Mortimer, Edward I, the statutes of Eustace, Henry VIII, the statutes of Wills, Henry VIII, as well as legality that was shaped indirectly by the provisions of the Magna Carta and Creator Praetors, which was also done by who? Edward I. All right? Edward I, at the same time that the Scottish got their independence, through the Scottish independence, do what they call, let me go back to it. Where was it at? Go to no Kingdom of Alba, right? Kingdom of Alba. Scottish independence, War of Independence was with Edward I. All right. So now let's look at Albion because there's a confusion between this Alba and Albion. All right. You can take it for what they wanted you to take it at, meaning Alba. All right. Going back to the what was that called? The Godel glass. All right. Look at that. Right there. Kingdom of Alba. All right. You can take that, or you can take it from this perspective. From Asselton. All right. In 930, King Asselton used the text title Rex Primus Sirius Totius Albanius Regne, king and chief of the whole realm of Albion. His nephew, Acre the Peaceful, styled himself in 970 Totius Albanius Imperator Augustus, August Emperor of all Albion. Okay? So if Asselton used it, we know Asselton was warned with Constantine II when they was called it the Kingdom of Alba. Right? We said that. All right? It was warned. And Edmund's father, Edgar's father. All right? And King Edmund's father, who was Edmund the First. Edmund the First was the King of England from 27 October 939 until his death. He was the eldest son of King Edward the Elder and his third wife, Queen Edgifru, a grandson of King Alfred the Great. After Edward died in 924, he was succeeded by his eldest son, Edmund, half brother Asselton. All right, Edmund was crowned after Asselton died childless in 939. He had two sons, Edwig, Edgar, and by his wealth Edgilful, and none by his second wife Ethelfled. Edgar is our Jesus Christ. Edgar the Peaceful. All right, Edgar the Peaceful, the son of Edmund the First. Right there, concrete proof. All right, let's get with it. So King Edgar was called Empress of Albanius, right? He was the emperor of Albion, all right? The emperor of Albion. His son was King Ethelred the Unready, right? Ethelred Unready had three sons, Edmund Ironside, Edward the Elder, and Edward the Confessor, all right? Edward the Confessor. Let's see. Let's go back a little further with Scottish real quick. Back to Kingdom of Alba. So if they were the kings of Alba, then the kings of Alba, this is strange. All right? Watch this. Another king of Alba. We have Malcolm III, we had Constantine II, we had Alexander III, and now we got what's his name? Kenneth II. All right? Kenneth II is nicknamed and how do you pronounce that? Fratercidal, died in 995, was king of Alba, Scotland from 971 to 995, the son of Malcolm I. He succeeded King Culion on the latter death of the hands of Brilligerch ap Desfoni. Pardon myself if I pronounced that wrong. All right. In 973, the Chronicles of Melrose report that Kenneth with Callum I, the king of Strathclyde, Malchus, king of very many islands, Magnus Harald's son, Marcus McArel, king of Mans and Islands, and other kings, Welsh and Norse, came to Chester to acknowledge the overlordship of the English King Edgar the Peaceful at a council in Chester. It may be that the king, it may be that Edgar had here regulated the frontier between the southern lands of the kingdom of Alba and the northern lands of his English kingdom. Cumbria was English, and the western frontier lay on the Solway. On the east frontier lay where somewhere in the later Lothians, south of Edinburgh. Okay, so the kings of Alba paid tribute to King Edgar the Peaceful as the overlord, who would say he was emperor of Albion. Okay, he was emperor of Albion. All right, let's look what overlord means. Just to make sure. An overlord is an English feudal system. Was the lord of a manor who had subdivided a particular manor estate or fee to a tenant. The tenant thenceforth owed to the overlord one of the varieties of service, usually military service or sergeantry. Depending on which form of tenure, i.e., feudal tenancy contract, the estate was held under. The highest overlord of all, or paramount lord, was the monarch who, due to his ancestor, William the Conqueror, personal conquest of the Kingdom of England, owned by inheritance from him all land in England under a lordly title, and has no superior overlord, holding from God and his sword. Although certain monarchs, notably King John, purported to grant Kingdom of England to Pope Innocent III, who would thus have become overlord of English monarchs. Let me go back down a little further. Modern vestige. In the language of the English law of landlord, the tenant and the concept of the feudal overlord persists. Furthermore, in England today, in any case of land ownership dying intestate and without legal heirs, just as in the feudal age, his estate effectively ceases and reverts to the overlord. But in the form of the paramount lord, the crown, it is disposed by crown estates. In Cornwall today, land is still in the theory held by the Duchess of Cornwall as Lord Paramount. In the case of English land is situated within the Duchy of Lancaster or Duchy of Cornwall, it reverts to the overlord of Duchy of Lancaster, the monarch, the Duke of Cornwall, the monarch of the son, possibly the two surviving quasi-paramount feudal lords surviving in England under then the monarch. We know that the Duke of Lancaster, the Duchy of Lancaster goes back to the founder of the Lancaster branch, which was Edmund Crouchback. All right, he was the founder of the Duchess of Lancaster, who was the son of, I'm not mistaken, Edward III. If I'm not mistaken, but for the sake of time, we're gonna move forward. All right. Let's see. All right. Treaties of Westminster. Treaty of Westminster, 1462. The Treaty of Westminster was signed on February 1462 between Edward IV of England of the House of York and the Scottish John of Islay, Earl of Ross, Lord of the Isles. The agreement proposed that if Scotland was conquered by England, the land north of the Scottish Sea, the first of fourths, would be divided between the Lord of the Isles and Earl of Douglas to be held from the crown of England, while the Earl of Douglas would hold Scotland south of the Firth. The Scottish crown and the minority of James III of Scotland had taken the Lancastrian side of the War of the Roses by welcoming the fugitive Henry VI of England. Edward IV was forming new alliances with disaffecting English and Scottish nobles to reduce the threat posed by the exiled former king, now in the hands of James III, Mother Mary of Guelders. All right, so this goes into the conflict between the cadet branches of the Yorks and Lancasters, which brings you back to the Treaty of Westminster of 1153. Treaty of Wallingford. The Treaty of Wallingford, also known as the Treaty of Winchester or the Treaty of Westminster, was an agreement reached in England in the summer of 1153 that effectively ended the civil war known as the Anarchy, caused by a dispute over an English crown between King Stephen and his cousin Matilda. The Treaty of Wallingford allowed Stephen to keep the throne until his death, which was to come in October 1154, but ensured he would be succeeded by Matilda's son, Henry II. In 1153, the anarchy had dragged on for nearly 15 years of armed combat in which neither King Stephen nor Empress Matilda could achieve victory in the struggle for the English throne. Here it is, the English throne. One second. All right. Could achieve victory and struggle of the English throne. This long period was characterized by a breakdown in law and order and allowed rebel barons to acquire ever greater power in northern England and East Anglia, which widespread devastation in regions of major fighting. But by the early 1150s, the barons of the church mostly wanted a long-term peace. All right, they said it started with the anarchy. So what is the anarchy? It's very important. This has to do with the William the Conqueror. The anarchy was a civil war in England normally between 1138 and 1153, which resulted in widespread breakdown and a law and order. The conflict was a war in succession precipitated by the accidental death of William Atlan, the only legitimate son of King Henry I, who drowned in the White Ship. Disaster of 1120, Henry sought to be succeeded by his daughter, known as Empress Matilda, but was only partially successful and convinced the nobility to support her. All right. Who was Empress Matilda? Empress Matilda was the son of Margaret of Scotland. Let's look at Margaret of Scotland. Matilda of Scotland. All right. Matilda of Scotland, also known as Good Queen Maud or Matilda of blessed memory, was Queen of England and the Duchess of Normandy, the first wife of King Henry I, the son of William the Conqueror who invaded England. She acted as a regent of England on several occasions during Henry's absence in 1104. Daughter of King Malcolm III of Scotland and the Anglo-Saxon Princess Margaret of Wessex. Did you hear that? Daughter of Malcolm III of Scotland, all right, King of Albia, and the daughter of Princess of the Anglo-Saxon House, Margaret of Wessex, who was the daughter of who? Edward of Exile, all right? Edward the Exile, all right? Was educated at the convent in southern England, where her aunt Christina was abbess and forced her to wear a veil, all right? So we see Matilda of Scotland was the daughter of Margaret of Wessex and Malcolm of Scotland, which made Margaret of Wessex Margaret of Scotland. Okay? As we see here. Let's just hit Margaret of Wessex. Margaret of Wessex, spouse Malcolm III. Her house was the House of Wessex. Her father was Edward the Exile. Okay? Her father was Edward Edward the Exile. Okay, Edward the Exile was the son of Edmund Ironside. Edmund the Ironside was the son of who? Edmund Ethelred the Unready. Right there. And Ethelred the Unready was the son of King Edgar the Peaceful. Right here. Edgar, King of the English. We see it. So Margaret of Scott, Margaret of Wessex, which married Malcolm the Third of Scotland, was the mother and father of Margaret of Matilda of Scotland, which we'll go back to now. All right, Saint Margaret of Scotland, and she was married to uh, Edward. What was his name? Um, Margaret of Saint Margaret of Scotland. Yes. Now we got Matilda of Scotland. Right here. Matilda of Scotland. She was married to Henry the First. All right. Henry the First was the son of William the Conqueror, the one who invaded England once Edward the Confessor died. All right. Edward the Confessor was the son of, if I'm not mistaken, uh, King Edgar, pardon self, Ethelred the Unready. All right, but let's, for the sake of time, just continue on. Matilda of Scotland. All right. So Matilda of Scotland was the daughter of Margaret of Scotland and Malcolm the Third of Scotland. But Matilda and Malcolm the Third were of different houses. Malcolm the Third was from the Scottish houses, and Margaret of Wessex from the House of Wessex, descended down from Alfred the Great. All right. So there was a break in the bloodline. All right. Okay. We know under the Treaty of Westminster of Wallingford, all right, it says that uh, William Allen was supposed to marry. William Allen died in the anarchy in the white ship. That's what they said, right? Once again, William Allen died in the white ship, which resulted in what they call the anarchy. The anarchy. Okay, let's go back to the anarchy. The anarchy was the civil war in England, which resulted in widespread breakdown in law and order. The conflict was a war of succession precipitated by accidental death of William of Adeline, the only legitimate son of King Henry I, who drowned in the White Ship. All right. So it was a civil war in England and Normandy as a result of William Adeline, the son of King Henry I, the son of William the Conqueror. All right. Because we know that William the Conqueror invaded England in 1066. All right. He invaded England. But why was it such a problem when William Adeline died in the White Ship? Why? That's what we need to ask ourselves. Why? Let's see why. Matilda Van Joe. Everybody pull that up. Pull it up, y'all. Argument like this, they'll never let you win. So you got to keep fighting and fighting and fighting and fighting. Rest assured, I'm doing it. Matilda of Anjou. We want to find out why was there such a uproar in England and Normandy, all right, as a result of William Atlan dying in what we call the White Ship, which resulted in an anarchy, all right? The anarchy. The anarchy was the result of the only son of Henry I, right, son dying. And we know Henry I was the son of William the Conqueror, and William the Conqueror was a bastard himself, all right? Matilda of Anjou, also known as Mahat, was married in 1119 to William Allen's son and heir apparent of Henry I of England. All right. Her house was of Anjou. Her father was Fulk V, Count of Anjou, and mother Emmegarde Countess Maine. All right. Once again, Matilda of Anjou was the son of Fulk, daughter of Fulk V. All right. And as a result of William Atlan dying, Normandy and England broke down. All right. Matilda was the daughter of Count Fulk V and his first wife, Emmegarde Countess Maine. In February 1113, Fulk V and Henry I met near Elcon, where they entered into a treaty of peace, which was secured by the betrothal of Henry's son William Allen and Fulk's daughter Matilda. The young couple was married in June 1119, when Matilda was around 8 years old. You hear that? On the evening of the 25th November 1120, returning from Normandy to England, William Allen chose to sail abroad the White Ship and subsequently drowned when that ship sank in the English Channel just outside of Baltimore Harbor. Matilda had avoided the disaster as passage for her had been arranged aboard another ship, presumably the one that her father-in-law was traveling on. William's death left her a widow and left her 10 years of age, and less than 10 years of age. Thus ended the treaty between England and Anjou. All right. On his return to Jerusalem, 1121, 1122, Fulk demanded the return of Matilda's dowry, comprising of castles and towns in Maine, to which Henry flatly refused. After months of fruitless quarreling, Fulk considered warring with Henry once more. Finally, Fulk countered Henry by marrying his other and older daughter, Sibylla, to William Clito, the son of Robert Curtholes, Henry's nephew and rival for Normandy. Fulk dowered the couple with the lordship of Maine. However, Henry I prevailed upon the Pope to annul this marriage on grounds of consanguinity in 1124. All right, check it out. In 1128, the year when she took her vows, Matilda's brother, Godfrey Plantagen, Count of Anjou, who was 15 years old, was married to her late husband's sister, the widow Empress Matilda, who was 26. From this marriage descended the Plantagenet dynasty, which ruled England from 1154 to 1485. Indeed, every king in England, beginning with Henry II, descended from that marriage. Did you hear that? Descended from that marriage of Godfrey the Plantagen and Matilda the Empress, the daughter of Margaret of Scotland. All right? Let's go to Matilda of Empress. Matilda. All right, let's see. Empress Matilda. Excuse me. Empress Matilda, also known as Empress Maud, was one of the claimants to the English throne during the Civil War known as the Anarchy. The daughter of King Henry I of England, the daughter of heir of King Henry I of England, she went to Germany as a child, where she married the future Holy Roman Emperor Henry V. She traveled with the emperor to Italy in 1116, was controversially crowned Empress of St. Peter's Basilica, and acted as the imperial regent in Italy. Matilda and Henry V had no children, and when he died in 1125, the imperial crown was claimed by his rival Lothair of Supplenburg. Matilda's younger and only full brother, William Adelin, died in the White Ship. Disaster of 1120, leaving Matilda's father and Rem facing a potential succession crisis. Upon her widowhood in the Holy Roman Empire, Matilda was recalled to Normandy by her father, who arranged for her to marry Godfrey of Anjou to form an alliance to protect the southern border in France. Henry I had no further legitimate children and nominated Matilda as her heir, making his court swear an oath of loyalty to her and her successors. While the decision was not popular in Anglo-Norman court, Henry died in 1135, but Matilda and Godfrey faced opposition from the barons. The throne was instead taken by Matilda's male cousin Stefan Blois, who enjoyed the backing of the English church. Stefan took steps to solidify his new regime, but faced threats both from neighboring powers, from opponents within his kingdom. All right. All right. Matilda returned to Normandy, now in the hands of her husband, in 1149, leaving their eldest son to continue the campaign in England, and he was eventually declared Stefan. And he eventually declared Stefan heir and succeeded to the throne as Henry II. All right. That goes back to the Treaty of Westminster. Right here. Agreement which reached, make sure you see that. It effectively ended the civil war known as anarchy caused by a dispute over English ground between King Stefan and his cousin Matilda. The Treaty of Wallingford allowed Stefan, Stefan to keep the throne until his death, but ensured that it would be successfully succeeded to Matilda's son, Henry II. Henry II was the son of Godfrey, the fifth Count of Anjou, the son of Fulk, the ruler of Jerusalem. We know that England was invaded by Henry I's father, William the Conqueror, all right, in 1066, all right? And we know that prior to William the Conqueror taking control, it was under Edward the Confessor, all right? And Edward the Confessor descended down from Edmund Ironside, the son of Ethelred the Unready, the son of our Jesus Christ, all right? Very important to understand that, because this goes back to the kingdom of Jerusalem, all right? Dealing with the king of Jerusalem. Let's go. Let me go back here. William the Conqueror. William the Conqueror. Wife was named everybody see this, Matilda of Flanders. Everybody see that? Matilda of Flanders. Who was Matilda of Flanders? She was the daughter of Count Baldwin of Flanders. All right. Now we can see that. All right. So that goes back to Jerusalem. All right. King of Jerusalem. Let's go back to Godfrey of Bouillon. He was from the house of Flanders. All right. He's from the house of Flanders. All right. We know the house of Flanders goes back, like I said, Baldwin the Fifth, go back to the Carolingian dynasty. All right, this all involves Jerusalem, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, going back to uh, Constantinople. All right, this all goes back there. All right, so you understand what's going on. They're trying to confuse you. Once again, they're trying to confuse you. All right. So in closing, I'm gonna go right here. This is this is Martin versus Wydell, the public trust doctrine, and I'll close out on this. Bear with me. Where's it at? Bear with me. Bear with me, y'all. Here it go. That's not it. Eighteen 24. Bear with me, everyone. That's not it. Okay, I think this is it. Now, where is it at? Where did it go? That's crazy. Just trying to find my place in this case law. I had to highlight it, but I don't see it now. I can't save it. So anyhow, in closing, all right, in closing, we know that the public trust doctrine can be looked at from three different perspectives. From the Justinian, going back to the Byzantine Empire, in regards to the state that was protected by the kings of Jerusalem, you know what I'm saying, under that was created by Pope Francis the First, or we can look at it from the perspective of the English people, all right, going back to those Athelans, going back to King Alfred the Great and uh, Asselton. You know, they were warned against the Scottish Gaelic descendants uh, who claim to have descended down from those who descended from the 12 tribes, which we know is a fictitious story. All right, a fictitious story. So understand what's going on. I hope I didn't keep you long, and I hope that the information was clear. Uh, Once again, it takes time for this information to digest. All right, it takes time. 1 second. Yeah, it takes time for you to digest information in regards to the illustrious history that has been brought forth. There is no lies in it. It's just straight up facts. All right, with historical proof to validate it. All right, we went through Martin versus Waddell, so I'm not going to waste your time with it today. In regards to the public trust, we know that the law is sound. And I hope that what's been spoken today will clear up some of the concepts in regards to the abstract story going back to Jacob and Esau concerning the birthright that was stolen. All right. When the persons who stole it was the very persons who were acting as the German monarchs under the English crown, but they were not. Right. So therefore, true heir under the agnatic succession via primogeniture has to come forth, such as myself, to take back the estate through incorporation or incarnation or personification under the king as the holder of the public trust, all right, under the public trust doctrine, so equitably put in Martin versus Waddell. So with that, I hope everything was good for your nourishment. And with that, the Third English Church and its officers, as well as its people, say peace.